Okay, we are going to take a quick second and go back and look at just some really super fast trig concepts that we can um, that we need to review. So the first thing, of course, is we are going to be looking at how to convert things back from radians to degrees and degrees to radians. In case you don't remember, to multiply something that's in degrees, or to convert something that's in degrees to radians, you will multiply by pi over 180. So that's kind of the key there. And if it's in radians and you want to get to degrees, then you will multiply it by 180 over pi. So keys, okay? So really quick, change the following from radians to degrees. So you will multiply this by 180 over pi. If you're already in radians, multiply it by 180 over pi. Boom, boom. And you can leave exact answers as if you want. So the exact answer would be 180 over 7. Or if you want to get a decimal, that's fine too. So if you want to have 180 over 7, or if you want to have 25.71, either way, it's degrees that your label needs to be. Okay, so that's how that goes. If it's in radians, again, you will multiply by 180 over pi. Some people think that the pi cancels out with the radians, and it doesn't. You can't do that. Radians is kind of that magical unit, remember, that we talked about, that appears and disappears when you need it to. So you will just multiply 5 times 180 divided by pi. And so you could either have 900 over pi if you wanted, or you can divide that out. And if you divide that out, you will get 286.48 degrees. And either way is fine for me, but either way it's degrees that your label is. Then of course if we go the other way around, then you will multiply by pi over 180. And you can use your calculator for this to get exact answers, which is probably what we would prefer. But to do that, you're going to ignore the pi for right now, and you're going to reduce the fraction 42 over 180. And when you reduce the fraction 42 over 180, you will get 7/30ths, and then kind of throw that pi back in. So the exact answer would be 7 pi over 30. If you want a decimal answer, which I would not prefer, but just to be able to check it, you'll get 0.733 radians. And either way, the label is radians, okay? And of course, for 345, similar, you would do pi over 180. And you will reduce that fraction. So I'm going to put in 345 divided by 180. I'm ignoring the pi button for right now. And then I will hit math, enter, enter. And I will get 23/12ths and then put that pi back in there. So 23 pi over 12 is the exact answer. And if you want a decimal, it would be 6.02 radians. Okay, so either one works. All right, then, if I'm asking you to find the exact value of these things, so cosine at 2 pi over 3. So I go over here, 2 pi over 3 is right here. You make your handy-dandy little triangle off of here. Or you remember that cosine is your x value over your r. Of course, anywhere on the unit circle, your r is 1. I know that this distance right here is -1/2, and again, you have to have it labeled as negative because it's going to the left. You're dealing with proportions here, and these proportions describe not only distance but direction, so you have to think about that. And then, of course, this distance right here is the square root of 3 over 2. Cosine is your adjacent over your hypotenuse, or your x over your r. This is your adjacent or your x, and this is your r. So we know that cosine at that spot would be -1/2 over 1, which is just -1/2. I don't know why I have two negatives there, sorry. So -1/2. Okay, we'll do just a couple more here. Tangent at -pi over 6. Remember, when it's a negative angle, instead of rotating this direction, you rotate this direction. So I will go -pi over 6, which puts me down here. And when you draw your little triangle in, then your triangle, of course, will go like this. Again, your radius is 1. Your x value here is square root of 3 over 2. And your y value would be -1/2. So this is, right here, this is your x, or your adjacent. And this is your y, or your opposite. And of course, this is your r, or your hypotenuse. Okay? So, tangent at negative pi over 6, tangent is opposite over adjacent. So opposite is negative 1/2, and adjacent is square root of 3 over 2. And then, of course, you can't have a double fraction, so you will flip that 2 over the square root of 3 and multiply by the reciprocal instead. And then the 2's will cancel, and you'll have negative 1 over root 3, or negative root 3 over 3, because you can't have a radical in the denominator, so you'll do this, so you can get that radical out of there, and you'll get negative root 3 over 3. So hopefully this is kind of jogging your memory a little bit. Secant at 150, so 150 is right here. If you draw your little triangle, you're at negative square root of 3 over 2 for your x value, and 1/2 for your y value, and of course your radius is 1. So this is your y, or your opposite. This is your x, or your adjacent. And this is your r, or your hypotenuse. Okay? And secant is your r over your x, or your hypotenuse over your adjacent, if you want to think about that. So that would be 1 over negative square root of 3 over 2. And of course you can flip that to 2 over negative root 3. Can't have a radical in the denominator, so I multiply by root 3, and I would get negative 2 root 3 over 3. Okay? That should do it for that. All right, then we're going to look at some of these where we solve some things on different intervals. So you're going to have to pay attention to this solving between 0 and 2 pi thing. You're going to pay attention to these intervals that I gave you. Obviously, 0 to 2 pi is one trip around the unit circle. So you're looking for any spot on one trip around the unit circle where your cosine, or your x value, is the square root of 3 over 2. Okay, again, cosine is your x value, so you're looking for where that is the square root of 3 over 2. So there's one spot right here between 0 and 2 pi, because obviously this is between 0 and 2 pi. So one spot here where your cosine value is square root of 3 over 2, and there's another spot right here where your cosine value is between 0 and pi over 2. You do not need to worry about restricted intervals here, because there's no -1 symbol, no inverse symbol in the original problem, so you're going to need every spot on the unit circle. So again, one spot right here is pi over 6, and another spot right here is 11 pi over 6. And then if you knew the decimal value for square root of 3 over 2, you could kind of look at your graph and sort of figure that out. I don't know what the decimal value for the square root of 3 over 2 is, but there's probably one spot about here, and there's probably one spot about right there. So you can see between 0 and 2 pi, there's 2 spots. All right, now I'm looking for where sine is negative root 2 over 2, but I'm looking for it, you can see, between 2 pi and 4 pi. Okay, so when you give me your answers, you have to be really careful. If you've made one trip around the circle, you've gone 2 pi. Now if you're going between 2 pi and 4 pi, that would be your second trip around the circle. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to those spots where sine is negative root 2 over 2, but when you give me your answer, you have to be giving it so that it's between 2 pi and 4 pi. Okay, and I'll teach you how to do that. So sine is negative root 2 over 2. And so sine is your y value, and your y value is negative root 2 over 2 down here at 5 pi over 4, and also down here at 7 pi over 4. Okay, that's where your y values are negative root 2 over 2, and that's what sine is. Okay, now I don't want your answers, though, to say 5 pi over 4 and 7 pi over 4, because you've gone around the circle more than one time. So to get to this spot down here, between 2 pi and 4 pi, if you go all the way around, you're at 2 pi, plus another 5 pi over 4 would put you back at that spot again. Okay, so if you go all the way around, that's 2 pi, plus another 5 pi over 4 puts you at that spot. So this spot, if it's between 2 pi and 4 pi, will be 2 pi plus 5 pi over 4. Okay, and then of course you can get common denominators and change this one to 8/4. And then 8 pi over 4 plus 5 pi over 4 would be 13 pi over 4 at that spot. Okay, so there's one spot. And then, of course, if I worry about this spot, I've gone all the way around. That's 2 pi plus another 11 pi over 6. Okay, so I will have 2 pi plus 11 pi over 6. And of course I will get common denominators and make this be 12/6. And 12/6 plus 11/6 would be 23 pi. Not 6. Ooh, I did that wrong. Sorry. I should have fourths down there. It's not 11 pi over 6 even. It's 7 pi over 4. Sorry. So I will do 2 pi plus 7 pi over 4. Okay? So again, I'll make this 8/4. So I'll have 8/4 plus 7/4, which makes 15 pi over 4. So those are the two answers that I want there so that they can be between 2 pi and 4 pi. Okay, also if you were to continue your graph and follow the pattern, you can find those spots on there as well. All right, and then where secant is -2, and I want to remind you that secant is the reciprocal to cosine. So looking for where secant is -2 is the same as looking for where cosine is -1/2. Okay, you're doing that between 3 pi and 4 pi though, so I want you to think about that. If you go all the way around, that's 1 pi, 2 pi. Here's where 3 pi is, right here. And if I continue, here's where 4 pi is. So I'm only looking in this interval down here is where between 3 pi and 4 pi is. Okay, I'm looking for where my cosine value is -1/2. And again, cosine is your x value. So this is your x value right here. And then you need to be really careful because when you're figuring this out, here's what you're going to do. If you go all the way around, that's 2 pi. To here is 3 pi. And then you need to think about, so you went 3 pi right now. How much more extra did you go to get to here? Well, this distance right here is pi over 6. Okay, so again, or 2 pi, 3 pi, and then that extra pi over 6. Okay, so this spot right here will be 3 pi plus pi over 6. And of course, if you get common denominators, this will be 18/6. So 18/6 plus 1/6 would be 19 pi over 6. And 19 pi over 6 is between 3 pi and 4 pi. Okay, so that's what you want to look for there. And then lastly, just really quick, these are some equations, and all I want you to be able to do is find the amplitude, the period, the horizontal shift, the vertical shift. That's it. Okay? Just a reminder that your amplitude comes from this number right out here. The negative will tell you if the graph is flipped or not. And then the amplitude comes from that number right out here. So in this case, it's an 8. Okay? To find your period, you will take 2 pi over the number in front of the x. For every trig function except for tangent and cotangent, with tangent and cotangent, you will take pi over the number in front of the x. So for sine right here, to find its new period, I will take 2 pi over the number in front of the x, which is 4, which of course reduces to pi over 2. So there's that. The horizontal shift comes from taking this value which right here, which is your phi, over your w. Okay, your phi over your w. So your horizontal shift comes from taking pi over the number in front of the x, which in this case is 4. Okay, so my horizontal shift is pi over 4. Because it's a negative in the middle, it's opposite of what you think, but when it's negative in the middle, it actually will move the graph right. So I want you to tell me that too. Give me how much and which direction. And then, of course, lastly, your vertical shift comes from this number back here. That gives you your midline. It's a +3, and so it will move that graph 3 up. Okay, so that is your vertical shift. All right, so there's that one. And then one more real quick one with cotangent, and we are done. Okay, so amplitude, again, comes from the number out here. Cotangent and tangent, remember, to calculate your period is different. You will do pi over the number in front of the x, again, only for tangent and cotangent. The other 4 trig functions are 2 pi. So if I go pi over 4 pi, that, of course, becomes 1/4. Okay, your horizontal shift comes from taking your phi over your w. So 3 pi over 4 pi becomes 3/4. And then your vertical shift, of course, comes from this number back here. So it does go 3 up. Okay, so +3. And I forgot to give you a direction on the horizontal shift. Again, when it's negative in here, it goes right. If it's positive, it will go left. So this one will go right. All right, hopefully that was enough of a quick review.